She walked up to me on the beach after 3 years of no contact, and I knew why she was there. The steak was still warm when my wife destroyed my life. 20 people. Crystal glasses raised mid-toast. The biggest deal of my career, a $14.2 million acquisition that took 11 months to close. My father flew in from Phoenix. My business partner brought champagne that cost more than my first car. And Samantha stood up, smiled at the room like she was accepting an award, and announced she'd been sleeping with someone named Brett. Called him her mirror. Said he taught her honesty. Said she couldn't keep living a lie. 20 faces. 20 expressions of horror. My father's hand frozen around his glass. My partner's wife covering her mouth. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't flip the table or throw my ring across the room. I just signed the check. Added a 30% tip because the waitstaff didn't deserve to witness that, and walked out. What Samantha didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that I'd been preparing for exactly this moment for 6 months. I'd been running Hartford Hospitality Group for 7 years when the texts started appearing. My father built the company from a single motel outside of Albany in 1987. By the time I took over, we had 14 boutique hotels across the Northeast, a management contract with 2 resorts in Vermont, and a reputation for the kind of quiet luxury that travel magazines love to write about. Samantha came into my life at a conference in Boston, fall of 2016. She was working for a wellness startup, running their social media, and she had this way of making everyone around her feel like the most interesting person in the room. Warm, present, curious. We dated for 2 years, got married in 2018. Small ceremony. Her family flew in from Vancouver. My father gave a speech about legacy and partnership. He also made her sign a prenup. Page 17, subsection D. In the event of verified marital infidelity by either party, all shared assets revert to the non-offending spouse. No exceptions. No negotiations. She laughed when she signed it. Called it overkill. Said she couldn't imagine either of us ever needing it. I remember her pen. Blue ink. The way she dotted the I in her name with a little flourish. That signature would become the most important document of my life. The first text I found was in November, 6 months before the dinner. I wasn't snooping. That's what everyone assumes when you tell this story, that you went looking for trouble. But I was just trying to find a photo she'd taken of a property we were considering in Burlington. She'd left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered, and I picked it up to scroll through her camera roll. The notification banner dropped down while I was holding it. Brett, can't stop thinking about last night. You're incredible. I stared at it for maybe 3 seconds, then it disappeared. My first thought wasn't rage, it was confusion. We didn't know anyone named Brett. Not in our social circle, not through work, not through her yoga studio or her book club or any of the dozen activities she filled her weeks with. I set the phone down, went to the living room, sat on the couch. My hands weren't shaking yet. That would come later. I told myself it was nothing. A wrong number. A friend with a weird sense of humor. Maybe she'd started some kind of online course and Brett was an instructor being inappropriately familiar. The rationalizations came easy. They always do. But that night, after she fell asleep, I lay awake until 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, running the words through my head like a song I couldn't stop humming. Can't stop thinking about last night. You're incredible. I didn't confront her. That was my first strategic decision. See, I've been in business long enough to know that information is leverage, and leverage is worthless if you deploy it too early. You don't show your cards until you know exactly what game you're playing. So I started watching, quietly, carefully. I noticed she'd started charging her phone in the bathroom instead of on the nightstand. I noticed she'd take calls outside, even in December, claiming she needed fresh air. I noticed she'd started mentioning networking events that never appeared on any calendar I could find. 3 weeks after the first text, I hired a private investigator, Marcus Webb. 22 years with the Massachusetts State Police before going private. Specializes in corporate espionage and domestic surveillance. His office was in a strip mall in Worcester, sandwiched between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. He had a handshake like a vice and eyes that looked like they'd seen every lie humanity had to offer. What do you want to know? He asked. Everything. He nodded. No judgment, no pity, just business. Timeline? As long as it takes. The retainer was $7,500. I paid in cash. Marcus delivered his first report 2 weeks later. The manila envelope sat on my desk for an hour before I opened it. I remember the weight of it, the way the paper felt under my fingers, the knowledge that whatever was inside would change everything. I opened it at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Brett Holloway, age 34, MBA from Wharton, currently employed as a strategic consultant for Meridian Capital Partners, a private equity firm based in Hartford. Meridian Capital Partners. The name hit me like a punch to the chest. They'd approached us twice in the past 3 years about acquiring Hartford Hospitality Group. Both times, my father and I declined. We weren't interested in selling. The company was family, legacy, not a line item on some investor's portfolio. But Meridian hadn't given up. According to Marcus's report, they'd simply changed tactics. Brett Holloway wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was mining her for information. Marcus had photos, timestamps, locations, a coffee shop in Newbury, a hotel in Providence, not one of ours, thankfully, a rental property in the Berkshires that showed up on Brett's expense reports as client entertainment. But the worst part wasn't the affair. The worst part was the documents. Marcus had managed to obtain records showing that Samantha had been forwarding emails from my work account, emails she had access to because I'd trusted her with my passwords to a Proton Mail address that traced back to Brett. Financial projections, occupancy rates, debt structures, renovation timelines, every piece of proprietary information that would help a hostile acquisition succeed. My wife wasn't just cheating on me, she was helping someone steal my family's company. I sat in my office until 2 a.m., reading the same pages over and over, waiting for them to say something different. They didn't. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Diana Reyes, Stanford Law, 15 years at Morrison & Forster before starting her own practice. She'd handled my father's estate planning and every major contract Hartford Hospitality had signed in the last decade. Sharp, ruthless, and allergic to sentimentality. I need to talk about my prenup, I said. Which clause? Subsection D. Silence on the line. Then, come to my office. Don't tell anyone where you're going. I was there by noon. Diana reviewed Marcus's report with the detachment of a surgeon examining an x-ray. Photos spread across her conference table. Documents organized by date. A timeline that made my stomach turn. This is comprehensive, she said. Your investigator does good work. Is it enough for the prenup? Absolutely. This is textbook infidelity. You could file tomorrow and walk away with everything. What about the corporate espionage? She set down the photo she was holding. Samantha and Brett at a restaurant, his hand on her knee, both of them laughing at something on her phone. That's more complicated. If you can prove she knowingly transmitted proprietary information to a competitor with intent to harm your business, you're looking at potential criminal charges, theft of trade secrets, economic espionage, maybe conspiracy, depending on how deep this goes. And Meridian? They'll deny everything. Claim Brett was acting alone. Throw him under the bus so fast he won't know what hit him. She paused. But here's the thing, Jason. If you go after the criminal angle, this becomes public. Very public. Your company's name gets dragged through the courts. Investors get nervous. Competitors smell blood. And if I don't, then you get a clean divorce. She loses everything under the prenup, and you rebuild without the circus. I thought about my father, about the hotels he'd built with his own hands, about the employees who depended on us, the housekeepers and front desk staff and maintenance crews who'd been with some properties for 20 years. What about her visa? Diana's expression shifted slightly. She came over on a spousal visa, correct? Yes. We sponsored her green card application, but it's still conditional. If the marriage ends due to her infidelity and she can't demonstrate extraordinary circumstances, USCIS will likely terminate her status. She'd have to return to Canada. I let that sink in. How long would that process take? Depends on the case. Could be 6 months, could be 2 years. Immigration is slow. I nodded. Okay, here's what I want to do. For the next 4 months, I lived 2 lives. There was the Jason that Samantha saw, the husband who came home at reasonable hours, who asked about her day, who pretended not to notice when she took her phone into the bathroom, or invented last-minute plans with friends who didn't exist. And there was the other Jason, the one who was systematically dismantling his entire life and rebuilding it in the shadows. I rented a storage unit in New Hampshire under a different name, not technically illegal. I used my middle name and my mother's maiden name, both of which are legally mine. Cash payment, no paper trail. Inside that unit, I built my bunker. $47,000 in cash, withdrawn in small increments over 3 months from an LLC my father had set up years ago for tax purposes. Bearer bonds worth another $30,000. A backup truck registered to James Hartford, another legal name variation. 3 prepaid phones. A laptop that had never connected to any network I used at home. Encrypted hard drives containing copies of every document Marcus had gathered, plus my own records of Samantha's activities. I also started the legal name change process. In New Hampshire, you can change your name through the probate court without publishing a notice if you can demonstrate a legitimate reason. Diana connected me with a judge who owed her a favor. Nothing corrupt, just professional courtesy. The paperwork would be ready to file the moment I needed it. My father knew. He had to. I needed access to family accounts, needed his signature on certain documents, needed him to understand why I was restructuring our corporate holdings without explanation. He didn't ask questions. He just looked at me one evening, after I'd laid out what I needed, and said, "I never liked her. You never said anything. Would you have listened?" I didn't answer. We both knew the truth. The hardest part was waiting. Samantha continued her affair with breathtaking confidence. She'd come home from her yoga classes, flushed and distracted, phone clutched in her hand, lies falling from her lips like they were nothing. I watched her, studied her, tried to understand how someone could share a bed with you, eat breakfast across from you, kiss you goodbye every morning, while systematically betraying everything you'd built together. I never figured it out. Marcus kept me updated. The relationship was intensifying. Brett was pushing for more information, merger discussions, acquisition targets, anything that would help Meridian position themselves for a hostile takeover, and Samantha delivered every time. In March, I discovered she'd photographed documents from my home office, financial statements I'd brought home to review, board meeting minutes, a draft of our 5-year strategic plan. I found out because Marcus had installed a discreet camera in our home office, with my permission, obviously, and we watched the footage together in his strip mall office while I gripped the armrests of his guest chair hard enough to leave marks. "She's not even being careful," Marcus said. "She doesn't think she needs to be." That's usually how it goes. The longer people get away with something, the sloppier they get. I watched my wife photograph another page, smile at her phone, walk out of the frame. "I want to end this." When? I'd already chosen the date. My acquisition celebration dinner. The night my family and friends would gather to toast my success. June June 15th, Marcus raised an eyebrow. You're sure? She wants honesty? I'll give her honesty, on my terms. The day of the celebration, I moved with surgical precision. 7 a.m., transferred all liquid assets from joint accounts to protected trusts my father had established in Delaware, legally bulletproof. Diana had triple-checked the paperwork. 9 a.m., filed the divorce papers. Diana delivered them personally to the courthouse. The clock was now ticking. 11 a.m., activated the legal name change. As of that moment, I was legally Jason Marcus Webb, a small tribute to the investigator who'd helped me see the truth. 2 p.m., drove to New Hampshire and loaded essentials into my backup truck. Cash, documents, everything I'd need to disappear. 5 p.m., returned home, showered, put on my best suit, kissed my wife on the cheek and told her she looked beautiful. 7 p.m., arrived at the restaurant. I didn't know she was going to make her announcement that night. That was pure coincidence, or maybe fate's twisted sense of humor. She'd apparently been planning her own version of honesty for weeks, but when she stood up, glass in hand, and started talking about mirrors and authenticity and her lover Brett, I felt something I didn't expect. Relief. She'd just done my job for me, in front of witnesses, on video, because my father, God bless him, had been recording the toasts on his phone. I signed the check, added the tip, and walked out into the summer night. My truck was waiting 3 blocks away. I drove north, didn't stop until I crossed into Vermont. Behind me, my old life was already crumbling. I tracked the destruction from a cabin I'd rented under my new name. Prepaid phone, satellite internet. Marcus feeding me updates every 48 hours. Day 1. Samantha posted a video on Instagram about choosing honesty over comfort. 47,000 views. Comments were brutal. Apparently, several of our mutual friends had already shared their version of events. Day 3. She tried accessing our bank accounts. All of them locked, frozen, or emptied into trusts she couldn't touch. I have the screenshot Marcus sent me. Her face captured by an ATM camera, staring at a receipt that said insufficient funds next to an account that had held $340,000 72 hours earlier. Day 5. She called the police, told them she was worried I might hurt myself. Detective Frank Morrison, 18 years with the Boston PD, showed up at our house to investigate. Diana had anticipated this. She'd already provided the department with a letter confirming I was on a planned sabbatical and was not in any distress. Morrison called Diana. Diana called me. She's panicking, Diana said. Good. Day 8. Samantha hired her own lawyer. Roger Chen, decent reputation, mostly handles personal injury. Out of his depth on this one. He sent Diana a letter demanding fair and equitable distribution of marital assets. Diana's response was 3 words. C. Prenup. Subsection D. Day 12. Samantha's immigration status became a problem. Her conditional green card was tied to our marriage. With the divorce filing, specifically a divorce based on documented infidelity, USCIS had grounds to revoke her status. She hired an immigration attorney, Patricia Vance, 30 years in the field, known for getting hopeless cases through on technicalities. But even Patricia couldn't work miracles. The evidence was too clear. The prenup was too specific. And Samantha had publicly announced her affair in front of witnesses who were happy to provide statements. Month 3. The divorce was finalized. Samantha received nothing. The prenup held. Month 7. USCIS issued a notice to appear. Her status was under formal review. Month 11. Deportation order finalized. She had 30 days to leave the country. Marcus sent me one last report. A photo of Samantha at Logan Airport, dragging a single suitcase toward the international terminal, alone. I didn't feel triumph. Didn't feel vindication. I felt tired. I bought the cabin in Maine with cash. An old fishing property on the coast. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, a wood stove, a view of the Atlantic that never got old. I learned woodworking from YouTube videos and library books. Started making small things. Cutting boards, picture frames, simple furniture. Got better. Found my way to driftwood sculptures, pieces shaped by the ocean and finished by my hands. A local gallery owner saw one of my pieces at a farmer's market. Asked if I had more. Within a year, I had a small reputation in the coastal art scene. Within 2 years, I had commissions from collectors in Portland and Boston and New York. I changed my name back to Jason Hartford. The web identity had served its purpose. I rebuilt relationships. My father visited every few months. We'd fish and drink whiskey and talk about nothing important. My business partner bought out my share of Hartford hospitality. I didn't need it anymore. A few old friends reached out, and I let them back in slowly. Oliver, my former brother-in-law, became an unlikely constant. He'd seen through his sister years before I had. We talked on the phone every few weeks. He never told Samantha. I found peace. Real peace. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you need. And then, 3 years later, she came back. I'm on the beach at sunrise, working on a new piece, a spiral of driftwood that's been fighting me for weeks. The wood has its own ideas about what it wants to be, and I've learned to listen instead of force. The sand is cold under my feet. The sky is turning pink at the edges. I've got coffee in a thermos and nowhere to be. And then I hear footsteps, hesitant, stopping and starting. The rhythm of someone who isn't sure they should be here. I don't turn around. I don't need to. I know those footsteps. I know that hesitation. Jason, her voice, older, rougher, but unmistakable. I turn around. Samantha is standing 15 feet away. Cream coat, probably expensive once, but showing wear now. Hair perfect. She always prioritized that. Makeup flawless, covering what the years have done. But her eyes look hunted, cornered, hard. The eyes of someone who's run out of options and knows it. When she sees me, really sees me, something in her face shatters, like she'd been holding herself together with nothing but hope. And the reality of this moment just broke the last thread. I'm not the man she left. I'm tanned from outdoor work, calloused hands, 30 pounds of stress gone from my frame. I look healthy. I look happy. She looks like she's been fighting a war she can't win. I've been looking for you, she whispers. The magazine article. I knew it was you. 6 months ago, a regional art magazine did a piece on coastal sculptors. I'd agreed to be included, used my real name for the first time in years. I should have known it would find its way to her eventually. And now you found me. She takes a step closer. I don't move. I needed to explain. There's nothing to explain, I say. You said everything at that dinner. She wraps her arms around herself. I remember that gesture. Defensive, self-protective, a tell she never knew she had. That was a mistake. The way I did it. I've regretted it every day. I let the words hang in the air. Watch her watch me for a reaction. Samantha, I say calmly. I don't care. Those 4 words land harder than any insult could. I see it in the way she flinches, the way her breathing changes. She tries again. Oliver misses you. Oliver knows how to reach me. We talk. Her face shifts. Surprise first, then something darker. Betrayal. He never told me. Why would he? The tears come then, rolling down her cheeks, catching the morning light. I recognize them. The performance tears I saw 100 times during our marriage. Tears designed to manipulate, to evoke guilt, to make the other person responsible for her feelings. They don't work on me anymore. I just need you to understand what I was going through. I understand perfectly, I say, turning back to my driftwood. You wanted something different. You got it. Now you're living with it. That's it? Her voice rises, the desperation cracking through the carefully constructed approach. 3 years, and that's all you have to say? I look at her one more time. What do you want, Samantha? Forgiveness? Permission to feel better about what you did? I can't give you either. Not because I'm angry. I got over the anger a long time ago, but because they're not mine to give. You made choices. You live with them. That's how it works. She stands there, tears running down her face, waiting for something that isn't coming. The silence stretches. The waves crash. A seagull cries somewhere above us. I'm broke, she finally admits. The words fall out like they've been trapped for years. The wellness thing died. I tried to restart it in Vancouver, but nobody cared. I got married again. Chris, a real estate developer, and that imploded too. He's fighting me for everything. I'm living off credit cards and panic, and I don't know what to do. I pick up a piece of driftwood, examine its grain. That sounds like a you problem. You locked me out of everything, she hisses, the mask slipping now, showing the real face underneath. You let immigration destroy my life. You took everything I had. I didn't let anything. I cut in. I didn't make you sleep with Brett Holloway. I didn't make you photograph my documents and sell them to his company. I didn't make you stand up at my celebration dinner and announce your affair to everyone I cared about. I set the driftwood down. You made choices, Samantha. You broke the marriage. You signed papers you didn't bother to read. Consequences aren't cruelty. They're just consequences. Her composure cracks completely. I was in pain, she says. I was lost. I felt invisible in that marriage. Brett made me feel seen, made me feel like I mattered. And how did that work out? She doesn't answer. Let me guess, I say. Brett disappeared the moment you weren't useful anymore. The moment there was no more information to extract, no more access to provide. He moved on to someone else's wife, someone else's company, and you were left with nothing. Her silence tells me everything. And now you want me to be angry, I continue. Because if I'm angry, you're justified. If I'm hurt, you mattered. If I'm bitter, then what you did had meaning. But I'm not any of those things. I'm just done. I was done 3 years ago. She stares at me like I've stolen something from her. You think you're free, she whispers. But you're not. You're just hiding. Out here with your wood and your ocean and your little art projects. That's not freedom. That's running away. I pick up my driftwood again and smile. No, I'm living. I wake up every morning and I make things with my hands and I watch the sun rise and I have dinner with people who actually care about me. That's not running away. That's choosing what I want my life to be. I gesture at the beach, the water, the world I built. You're the one who showed up on my beach, broke and desperate, looking for a door I welded shut 3 years ago. I turn my back on her. Goodbye, Samantha. She doesn't leave immediately. Stands there another minute, maybe 2. I can feel her presence behind me, feel her struggling with the reality of this moment. She came here for something. Forgiveness, money, another chance. The emotional satisfaction of seeing me broken. She got nothing. Finally, footsteps, retreating across sand, slower than they arrived. The sound of someone who's run out of moves. I don't watch her go. The wood is still in my hands, still needs shaping. The spiral I've been fighting with suddenly makes sense. I can see what it wants to become. I pick up my tools and get back to work. The sun clears the horizon. The waves keep coming. The world keeps turning. And unlike some things, the wood doesn't beg for second chances it never earned. 6 months later, a letter arrived at the gallery. No return address, but the postmark was Vancouver. I almost threw it away unopened, but something made me slice the envelope. 1 page, her handwriting, shakier than I remembered. Jason, you were right. About Brett. About everything. Meridian fired him 2 years ago. Securities fraud. He's facing federal charges now. I found out from a news article. I'm not writing to apologize again. You made it clear that doesn't mean anything. I'm writing because I finally understand what you meant. About consequences. About choices. I chose wrong. Every time. And I have to live with that. I don't expect a response. I don't deserve one. But I wanted you to know. The person I was that night at the restaurant, the person who photographed your documents and called it honesty, I hate her. I hate her more than you ever could. I hope your sculptures are beautiful. I hope your life is everything you wanted it to be. Sal. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer with other things I'm not sure what to do with. I don't feel vindicated. Don't feel triumphant. Don't feel much of anything, really. That night, Oliver called. We talked about his new job, his girlfriend, the trip he's planning to Portugal. Did you hear about Brett? He asked. I heard. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. I laughed. Actually laughed. How's the sculpture coming? The spiral thing? Finished it last week. Gallery owner thinks it's the best thing I've ever made. That's amazing. I'm proud of you, man. Thanks, Oliver. We talked for another 20 minutes about nothing important. The weather. A podcast he'd been listening to. A restaurant he wanted to try. Normal things. Peaceful things. When we hung up, I walked outside and stood on the beach. Same beach, same waves. Same stars appearing in the darkening sky. 3 years ago, I drove north with nothing but cash and documents and a burning need to survive. Now I have a home, a craft, friends who show up without wanting anything. Peace I earned the hard way. Samantha was wrong. I'm not hiding. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.